Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Up the Middle. In this episode, we're going to get right to it. Don't forget to hang out to the end of the video, like every YouTuber or episode guy does that, so you can see or hear the outtakes depending on where you're joining us from. Don't forget that right there, yergs.com is hot, it's ready, it's active. You can get this episode right there. You don't even have to go anywhere else anymore. But just in case there's all those, you can get podcasts, video, audio, and soon we're going to be on the radio. We'll have our own network on internet radio coming this fall. Hang in there. So in the past couple of days, I'm always doing research, for topics and so on. I met with Jen finally from that group that I'm meeting with every Thursday morning. This past Thursday morning, we finally met. She is from Ad Fontes Media that does the interactive chart. Remember, we showed the one last week or the week before where Dan Bongino shows up on the bottom right, far right, which means he's skewed way the hell over there. And also way on the bottom, which means his reliability sucks. So I've been telling you that. I was just on the chart the other day, and he's off the charts. Literally, he's not on it anymore. Also, somewhere in my collection of photos, I took a photo of a screenshot of his Twitter account, or my relationship to my Twitter account and his Twitter account. I am officially blocked by Dan Bongino. That didn't take long. So today, like I said, I've been thumbing through some of my social media, and I came across an article that was written by a man by the name of Peter Rosenstein. I knew Peter from a distance. We weren't buddies. I don't know how well he thinks he knows me. But Peter Rosenstein is a DC-based political activist and consultant who, like I said, I knew from a distance during my 11 and a half years also living in Washington, D.C. As a fellow member of the LGBT community, Mr. Rosenstein writes for the DC's Washington Blade, which is the LGBT newspaper. His recent article, as you see on your screen, Say No to DC-Ranked Choice Voting Open Primaries. So there's two issues that are coming up, and he wants you to say no to both of them when DC residents get a chance to vote on that issue. The recent article is just the opposite of what the LGBT community stands for. The gay community is about acceptance and inclusivity. I can tell you that from my own personal experiences. In this article, however, Mr. Rosenstein advocates for division and partisan politics, particularly when he accuses my fellow independents as being, quote, too lazy or too good to get involved in their communities or specifically get involved in politics. My other problem with the information in the article is that he claims to have spoken to fellow progressives that are for ranked choice voting and open primaries, as well as having claimed to speak with Republicans. I doubt that. I specifically remember most Democrats didn't talk to Mr. Rosenstein when I lived in D.C. Nobody in the gay community did. And I know Republicans won't talk to him for reasons of operational security, or what we in the government called OPSEC, or not for very long at least. Mr. Rosenstein's critique on ranked choice voting is that while RCV gives more value to those who, one, worked harder, and that, two, it does not actually bring out more voters. He goes on to say that he's never met a politician who hasn't worked for their seat. Really? Possibly maybe because he should have come along with me on the presidential campaign trail. It seems as though he's a left side MAGA who says, "Make America great again," but never left home, especially to see the rest of America. I've seen plenty of politicians not work for their seats, or, like George Santos, lie to get them. Furthermore, ranked choice voting is to, well, rank the candidates with the most number one votes, or however it goes, being, I guess it's like a golf score. If you have the lowest amount of points, that means you came in number one. My additional pushback is that he drags down the quality of the Washington Blade because he is opinionated, not cited, and is not proving facts that he tries to state with either studies, statistics, or some other citation. So I've done it for you. And guess what? Mr. Rosenstein is wrong. First of all, and perhaps I'll fight opinion with opinion, if the LGBT community is truly inclusive, Mr. Rosenstein would use less militaristic and demanding verbiage. The impression the reader gets is take it or leave it. Pick a side. It's a fight. It's us versus them. Not, let's sit down and discuss our differences. But first, let's review our exchange in the comments section of his LinkedIn post where I found this article in the first place. My first comment was that I'm not totally against open primaries. As an independent, I'm eliminated simply because I think for myself, not along party lines. It gives me a bigger say, and I would have done so back in 2008 and again in 2016. His response was, not being a member of a party doesn't make you think for yourself. In most cases, it just means you don't want to bother getting involved in the issues and fighting for them, the same argument he made in the article. You still would have had to vote in one of the party primaries, and had you gotten involved in that party, you would have had a bigger say. So he's saying that if I would have said I'm a Republican or a Democrat, when I'm not, and I don't fall 100% along either party's lines, I would have already had my bigger say. However, we'll talk about statistics, something he should have added, in a second. Continuing, my retort was, everything you said is exactly why this country is divided, Peter. Send me a headshot. You're about to be the subject of my next episode. And of course, I did the shameless plug and put a podcasters.spotify.com link in the comment so that all his friends can find out about me. And then I added with, have a view or a listen, retired Secret Service agent with first-hand and recent knowledge, unlike Dan Bongino. Gotta give that shot. The conversation continued. His retort was, sorry, I really have no interest in being part of your next episode. Thanks for the comments. I wasn't giving him a say. He's the next episode. So I said, oh, you're in it. That's the difference. I don't have an editor telling me what or who to talk about. This was the part I thought was sad. He replies back with laugh out loud. I can talk about who I want to as well, but I tend not to talk about people I disagree with. Isn't that what politics is for? Open discussion? Hyphen. Don't mention names of anyone who isn't famous in my writing. Gee, Peter. You're writing for a small newspaper. I'm doing this all over the internet. In week number 1 of this podcast, a mere 2.5 months ago, I was approached by the Boston Globe, with whom I spoke yesterday. They are quite impressed with what I've been doing. Plus, we're going on the radio. So much for that shot. So he goes on to continue after the second hyphen, but since I know well who you are, knew you years ago in D.C., I really have no interest in a debate with you. That's what I talked about earlier. He did not know me well at all, ever. D.C., before D.C., after D.C., now, whenever. He did not know me well. But have fun. Oh, I'm enjoying this. Thank you. And take care. Stay well. So those were the comments. That was our back and forth in the comments section on LinkedIn. I'm not going to put a link to that in the comments or the show notes or anything like that because I don't, unless you're on LinkedIn, I don't think you're going to be able to see that unless you're perhaps also a connection of his. Not to worry. The link for the Washington Blade, which is a newspaper that I do support. I do get their emails. I do check out their stories. I do still have plenty of friends back in Washington, D.C. And, you know, I loved that city. I loved living there. I loved helping the Caps get to the Stanley Cup. I wish I would have been able to do so for the Nats. You know, is what it is. I loved it there. It was, good times. So, anyway, moving on. So, back to my points. There we go. Get that in there. Still having fun, Peter? Not all independents are free thinkers. That so Peter said, and I didn't say that they were. I said I was. So did RealClearPolicy.com, TheConversation.com, and CNN. But as a free thinker, I don't vote strictly along party lines. I personally am pro Second Amendment, have actually read the Bible, although I don't know why that one is considered to be on the right side of the political spectrum, especially recently. We've had Donald Trump, who called religion a scam. And we have Joe Biden, who's a dedicated Catholic. I've gone to church with the Clintons. I've gone to church with the Obamas. I've took my parents to church with the Obamas. Peter. Yet I'm for social programs, such as helping those with addiction, pro-choice, equal rights, in society, and under the law. In fact, independent voters make up the deciding portion of most major elections. Again, according to CNN, and in this case, per RealClearPolicy.com, imagine if they were permitted in open primaries or also participated in RCV. Some facts on the Indies. 49% of Americans are independent or non-affiliated. But let's also take a look at Generation Z and Millennials. In Gen Z, 52% of Gen Z voters are independent. The GOP only makes up 17%, and the Dems, 31%. For Millennials, it's a little bit more even, but still 52% for the Indies, 21% for the GOP, and the Dems, 27%. Now also, Indies are blocked in 15 states. That's for primaries, plus 8 additional GOP states. So what does that mean? In 35 states, there are open primaries where Dems will welcome independents to their primary election. 27 for the GOP. That is more than half of the United States allow for open primaries. Indies are also the deciding factor in many elections. In 2016, exit polls showed in Trump's favor, with or without Russian help. In 2020, those same polls showed in Biden's favor, and we're anti-Trump. We indies since 1952, according to theconversation.com, have begun to identify as independent. Then asked by pollsters if we prefer one party or the other, since then an assumption has been made that we are leaners. 42%, according to the conversation, of Americans are independents, compared to 49% from the citation earlier. Author Tom Riley, in this particular conversation article, and the link to that will, of course, be in the show notes or the description or comments, somewhere where you can check up on it. He suggests that you have to understand independent voters before alienating us. You've been up the middle. Check 1, 2. As a fellow member of the LGBT community, Mr. Rosenstein wrote that thing. And while I was thumbing through a bunch of different things, I came across his article that was released yesterday. Why is it every time I'm in the studio? Don't forget to hang out to the end for all the outtakes. I doubt that. I specifically remember I'm just getting ready on the next screen, and I'm fucking shit up badly.